Hello traders, welcome to a new video. I want to go over the anchored volume profile tool because one of the most common questions I always get whenever I do a market analysis video or any type of video with volume profile is everyone asking me, what is that tool that you're using or what volume profile is that? So I'm just going to go over on TradingView on their anchored volume profile and talk about why it is my favorite tool on that software that I use. Okay, so let's go to the charts. As always, remember code PABT for the best prop firms available. This is the best offers we have going this week, but anytime code PABT will get you the best discounts. Okay, so I'm gonna start off. This is a chart of the SP 500 futures 1 hour. Now, with TradingView, first of all, in order to use the volume profile tools, you do need to have a paid plan with them, okay? There's two areas where you're going to find volume profile tools under indicators, technicals, profiles. From the list that we have here, really the only one that I use from here regularly is the session volume profile, which if I go into any low time frame chart, I have it set so it only shows on the minute time frames. So for example, here you can see this is the extended hours, regular trading hours, okay? But we're not going to talk about this one in this video. What I'm going to talk about is the ones I use for my higher time frames. So on the left hand menu, right here you can see there's two options. There's the fixed range volume profile, which is also very good, and the anchored volume profile. This anchored volume profile is the newest tool that they added. In the past, all you had available was a fixed range volume profile tool, which if I click on it, let's say that I wanted a profile going from this gap here all the way to the present. So I just drag, click, and then let me right click, send back so it doesn't cover the candlesticks. So this is the range volume profile. If I double click and go on the settings, you can see here, I can either choose for it to extend all the way to the right, or if you take this option off, you have the option of just taking it from one point to the other that you want. But in general, I always, for the most part, would use this with the extended right function, okay? Now, what is the problem with this indicator? In general, I like to have my session volume profiles on the left side where the session start time is, but for my longer term volume profiles, so they're not overlapping on the right side, both of them, I like to have it on the right. The problem with the fixed range is if I go into the settings and I click style, placement, if I put right, look where it puts it. It puts it next to the last candlestick on the chart. I want it over here. I don't want it here because it's very awkward to, have this whole thing covering the current candlesticks, okay? So, finally, they released their anchored volume profile tool, which if I click on it and I click on the gap here, immediately it opens it right here. So the anchored volume profile is basically going to anchor either to the far right side or the far left side of the chart. Let's right click on it. Let me make this a little bit less dark. Let's put it right there. So this is the valley area and the valley area high, valley area low, and the point of control lines. Obviously, all this can be customized to whatever colors you want. But if I go on the placement, I am not put left, you can see it's going to stay to the left side of the chart, okay? And if I take and I drag this to another spot, it's just going to continue adjusting itself to whatever point on the chart I put this in, okay? But in general, if you look at my videos and my charts, I always like to have this on the far right side, okay? So this was a great addition, and this is my favorite volume profile tool that I use aside from the session volume profiles. Now, let's talk about the settings, okay? Settings, inputs, this is where a lot of people get a little confused, okay? You can choose either number of rows or ticks per row. If I choose ticks per row, then that means the lower the number, the more definition you have. So if I put 1 tick, that means I'm going to have a line basically on every division that we have here on the chart. So if I expand the scale, you can see that ES and NASDAQ move in 0.25 point increments, okay? So this is equal to 1 tick. So you can see we have a bar from 407, from the 0.75 to 0, another bar from 0 to 25. If I went ahead and changed this to 2 ticks per row, now you can see I have 1 bar and it covers 2 ticks from 0.0 to 0.5, from 0.5 to 0.0, etc. Okay, so that's why if you choose 1 tick, especially in the futures market, ES and NASDAQ, you're going to get the minimum division and the most amount of definition. Now, what is the issue with this? Well, if I go ahead and I change, if I go into Bitcoin, which you can see Bitcoin has a much larger price scale than ES, and I go and I click on anchored profile and I go from this low to the end, the indicator is not coming up. See, I just clicked and nothing is happening. The reason is that 1 tick per row is too low of a measurement for the scale that Bitcoin has. If I put 100, let's see if anything happens. See, I'm basically going to have to start. See, I put 500 and now it appeared. If I go to 400, it's going to stay there. 300, it's there. 200, it's there. See, 100 is too little. So I need to be over 200. So the solution that I use for this, and this is what I always recommend everyone, is instead of ticks per row, I just use number of rows and I put a really big number like 2,000. Okay? That doesn't mean I'm going to have exactly 2,000 rows here. There might be less, but by using a big number, I mean, we can go even, 3,000 if you want. So by using a very high number, I make sure that I'm getting the most definition on the indicator. So if I go back to ES, look at the profile, how it looks now. This is 1 tick per row. If I put 3,000 number of rows, it looks pretty much the same as 1 tick per row. Basically, it's giving me the highest definition possible. So in general, if I'm using like Sierra chart, I always have it set to 1 or 2 ticks per row, depending if it's ES or NASDAQ. But if I'm on TradingView, I'm going to be using number of rows and I'm going to have a very high number. Volume, I always like to use total. Since TradingView doesn't have a true tick data count, I don't really rely on the delta on TradingView, and I don't really look at up and down. I like to just use total volumes traded, and value area, I always use 68%. Style, this values, this basically means if I start expanding this, it's going to show the volumes at each tick level. But again, with TradingView, they use a different calculation method, so those are not really the accurate traded volume measurements like you would get on a tick data from the CME, with another professional platform. Width of box, I generally have it at 20. Placement right. Up volume is basically the outside of the value area, and value area up is basically the 68% of the value area inside. Value area high, low, point of control. Sometimes I use this, sometimes I don't. Generally, for my longer term charts, I don't really apply this. I always have it on the sessions, but for my longer terms, I don't really use the value area high, low, and POC. It might be more useful if you're using it for a periodic, like a weekly profile or a monthly. But if I'm just hinging it from specific swing highs or lows, I generally don't use it. Developing POC and value area, I don't use, but it basically just shows how the values have been migrating since the anchor point that you put on the chart. Okay, and then the histogram is basically just the background. So you can add a little background just to see easier like what area you have the profile from. Coordinates, this is basically just how far back it goes. And visibility, in general, it depends on the time frames. For my longer terms, I'll generally always have them on the hours and the days. And the session profiles, I'll only have them on the minutes, okay? But that's pretty much in a nutshell the anchored volume profile tool. If you see my videos and you see that I have a big profile on the edge of the chart, it's always going to be the anchored volume profile tool that we have down here. Let me hide the camera so you can find it right here. Anchored volume profile tool. Okay, so with that, I'll leave you. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you're having a great weekend. Make sure to leave a like, leave a thumbs up, subscribe. We're almost at 50,000 subscribers, and not a lot of accounts bring you all the content and educational material that I share here for free every week. So I will see you all in the next video. Take care.